So, it's official. After much hope and anticipation, after imagining the very prospect of this for years, a live-action version of Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame is finally coming true. But, I imagine that it's not going to be long before Disney's live-action reboot haters start slamming this before it even gets released. Which is why I'm getting the jump on doing this editorial video before the news spreads across the internet. Now, if you've seen my recent video on the upcoming Lion King remake, you'll know that I'm definitely not the most adamant defender of this current trend of live-action reboots. But I am much less tolerant of people who declare, "No, no, no, you do not touch this thing I love so much. You're just digging your own grave with this sellout move." Or those who defend something by attacking the detractors and saying that their negativity is unfounded and that they are just looking for reasons to hate it. The purpose of this video is going to be about me both defending the prospect of a Hunchback remake and explaining why I'm not opposed to it, but also addressing and dissecting the other reasons as to why people would be fearful and or skeptical about it. So from reading the Playbill webpage about the news so far, we know that the Hunchback remake is going to be a musical, and it's going to have Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz returning. So rest assured, we will be hearing the songs that we all know and love, like Bells of Notre Dame, Out There, Hellfire, God Help the Outcasts, and more. And it also says that it's going to incorporate elements from both the original animated movie and add elements from the novel, similar to how the stage versions did, which have become popular with dozens upon dozens of regional and international productions, even though it was ultimately too expensive to bring to Broadway. However, it is likely not going to feature material from the stage version itself. Thus far, I'm not too miffed about that. I hope that it doesn't mean that they completely rule out the option of using some of the stage's iconic songs like Someday, Made of Stone, Top of the World, or Esmeralda. But if they do, I'll be a little sad, but I'll also remain optimistic and open to starting with a clean slate and seeing what new songs they might come up with. Helming the script is Chinese-American playwright David Henry Hwang, who also helmed the productions of Disney's Tarzan on Broadway and Aida. We also know that Josh Groban is going to be involved, which makes me hope that we get to hear him do his own rendition of Made of Stone, like how he did one of If I Can't Love Her from Broadway's Beauty and the Beast, to promote the remake. So now, I'd like to take the time to address a few reasons as to why I can support this remake happening. I know that a lot of people have said that one reason to remake this would be to do it without the gargoyles, or the overall burden of trying to keep it as kid-friendly as possible. And to all those who would complain that Disney would just censor this beyond all belief for easy family marketing, to that I say, Pirates of the Caribbean. If they can be successful with that film, especially at a time when pirate films had been down and out for years and films based on theme park rides were dubious, then I'm confident that they can be similarly successful here. Probably not at the level of grossing $1 billion, but studios taking risks is what keeps their products from getting stale. And as someone who has already watched all the screen adaptations for Hunchback, I can say that none of them feature content that explicitly pushes them into R-rated territory. Even the recently made-for-TV Anthony Hopkins and Mandy Patinkin versions would be rated ages 12 and up at most. Here are some of my own reasons as to why I can actually support the decision of Disney doing a live-action rendition of Hunchback. First, coming up in just a few years is the 100-year anniversary of the silent Lon Chaney movie, which is a staple in the history of cinema. And one thing that Disney has been known for from the beginning is giving shout-outs to film landmarks, and heck, Disney can do a take on the story where references to the source material add to it rather than just feeling like slapped on for the sake of it. Second, Hunchback is one of Disney's special films that plays best to a big audience in theatrical settings, from its grand cinematic scale to its ominous choir. But it doesn't have the privilege of getting big screen re-releases like Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, except in select European regions. For those who were too young to see the movie when it first came out, this will likely be the closest that they can get to re-experiencing it in its full scope, save for a locals production of the stage version. And also, it doesn't rely on mostly fantastical elements that are only suited for animation. You could have Quasimodo speaking to the gargoyles and statues without them springing to life, and have him hear voices inside his head as he looks at them, like in the book. And moreover, while the animated movie is popular in its own way, it's no secret that it's not Disney's most respected property. namely being contested for being too sugar-coated and commercialized for most of the book purists, and for having too dark a nature for a typical family crowd, it doesn't get placed on many high pedestals, except as a fan favorite. Even Disney once said that if they were to do a live-action remake, it probably wouldn't feature many big-name Hollywood actors. And personally, I don't care if the actors are big or obscure or even making a debut with this film. If this movie was where I was making my debut in the field of film, I'd be more than thrilled to have the opportunity to pay my tribute to a work that helped shape my life in a significant way. And since Alan Menken calls Hunchback his best score out of everything that he's done, I think Disney really owes it to him to have this movie be a send-off to him before his career draws to a close. And that, I think, is the best way to look at this project. A take on a familiar work that's not trying to be better, but trying to be a loving send-off to it, while passing the torch to other creative minds, sort of the way I saw Mary Poppins Returns. And the fact that this would be one that can't simply get by on coasting off people's nostalgia for the original makes it less of a sellout move and more like a chance to bring the original into more people's consciousness. Now to address one of the biggest elephants in the room. Should this remake stick with the animated film's more uplifting ending, or go with the original tragic one where all the characters die, like in the stage version? While I am a firm believer in adaptations owing something to their sources, I typically avoid being such a purist who goes into conniptions over even the slightest deviation, because I understand that sometimes adaptations just have to change things to accommodate different audiences. And frankly, that's the best way to look at adaptations, having multiple versions that bring something new to the table, rather than one version being the definitive be-all, end-all. With the exception of the Anthony Quinn French film, most adaptations of Hunchback don't end like the book. Heck, even the Charles Laughton version, often considered to be the best of the Hunchback films, spares all the good guys. Lindsay Ellis already did a video essay where she makes a case for Disney's Hunchback, where she expresses a lot of the same views that I myself hold, that the lightening up of the story might not be as big a betrayal to the book as the purists might make it out to be. But I don't agree with her assessment on the musical being less enjoyable because it switches things up with a darker tone and ending. Personally, I can see pros and cons to both sides. And ironically, a similar debate has gone on regarding whether the sad or happy ending was better for another one of Menken's classic musicals. On the one hand, I see how happier endings inspire people to embrace life to a T, which is what Walt Disney himself said his goal was with everything that he created. Seeing how Disney's renditions of the Hunchback characters have resonated with so many people personally, it might feel almost cruel to watch them continuously suffer and fighting so hard only to ultimately go out losing everything. On the other hand, though, Disney going for a more tragic route does break the mold that the crowd tends to strawman them for about being too unrealistically happily ever after and saccharine, like how they managed to effectively do the Little Match Girl with the original sad ending intact. Also, one of the strengths of tragedies is evoking audiences to contemplate afterwards how they might resolve their fate differently. Like how the main theme of the musical song Someday is, we live in a world that has always been cruel to us and our best efforts weren't enough to change it. So the best that we can do is pray that things will change and be better after we're gone. For me personally, the ending that hit all the right notes of somberness with enough hope and optimism was the more bittersweet ending of the original 1999 German stage musical, where Quasimodo has a very touching and evocative reprise of Out There. I'll leave a link to a rendition by Mark de Groot in the description below if you want to check it out. Now, even after everything I've just covered, does this mean that a remake is absolutely necessary? I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but since this is a time where remakes are inevitable, I'm just trying to give my own opinion on how this is one remake I wouldn't object to see happening. And am I saying that this version is going to be great no matter what? Again, no. But I think, like anything else, the only way to enjoy it would be to go in with an open mind. And if Alan Menken wants to have another go on the big screen with what he considers to be his finest score, I'm sure that he would only allow it to happen if the result was the very best he could possibly make it. I know that there are going to be people who watch this and disagree with me, and that's fine. So long as you provide a smart and civil argument for or against what I have to say, without ignoring any details that I brought up, I'll be open to you. I look forward to seeing what you have to say in the comment section, and I'll talk to you later. I'll also leave a link to Mark Cabuzzi's channel where he's created his own playlist of where he describes his own concept of a hypothetical remake of Hunchback, if you want to take a look at that. It's very fascinating.